Superannuation funds have been in the doldrums for the last 5 years thanks to the global financial crisis, but that hasn't stopped the people charged with looking after those funds being paid billions of dollars for very little return. Now there are increasing calls for those fund managers to publicly disclose their high salaries in the same way that senior executives and directors of publicly listed companies are forced to. Andrew Robertson reports.
Superannuation is a $1.3 trillion industry and growing fast, as are the fees paid to the men and women who manage that huge pot of money.
The short answer in this industry is it generates $17 billion a year in fees. Now, we need more transparency around that. Who gets paid what, how much and for what services?
At the moment, superannuation funds don't have to disclose how much they pay their managers, which for some who know the sector well means super fund members don't really know what they're investing in.
So if you're a long-term investor, as a superannuation fund is, you need to make sure that the manager is also being paid with some long-term incentives, not just short-term incentives, as is often the case in the finance sector.
And then there's the double standard. Superannuation funds invest in listed public companies where they demand high standards of disclosure of the remuneration of senior executives and board members.
It's bizarre that the same standards seem to be absent from the super funds and the fund managers. I don't know why that's the case. We expect it from the banking sector. We expect it from the insurance sector and for public listed companies.
For the Council of Small Business Organisations of Australia, that lack of publicly available information leaves a vacuum, which makes members of super funds vulnerable.
Now, we've got two examples in the industry area with the UniSuper and the MTAA, where they've had major troubles and lost people's money. And I think that if we had transparency, big transparency a few years ago, that might not have, well, it wouldn't have happened.
Fund managers also pay themselves very handsomely, with some getting millions of dollars a year. But according to figures from Super Ratings, the median balanced super fund has returned less than 5% a year over the last decade. A bank term deposit would have paid more.
The performance of fund managers in a lot of cases is not that great. However, some fund managers have been paid very well for very, very good performance. And where they do add value, look, they are entitled to be remunerated extremely well.
The lack of disclosure of the remuneration of superannuation trustees is also becoming a major issue, as is the skill set of many people appointed as trustees. It's becoming increasingly contentious in industry funds, which grew out of a partnership between employers and unions.
Well, they should be picking people on those multi-billion-dollar institutions based upon their skills, based upon their understanding of the system, based upon their understanding of superannuation, resource management, interaction with the industry, based upon creating efficiencies within the systems. But they're not selected for that. They're selected because of where they work.
As you'd expect, the Institute of Superannuation Trustees doesn't share that view.
The not-for-profit sector has outperformed just under 2%. That adds a significant amount to people's retirement savings. So there's no evidence that the system doesn't actually work.
So waiting for the bad things to happen is just not good enough. This sector is just too important to this nation's economy and the welfare of its people just to leave it to discovering that regulation is not in place when things go wrong.
The Cooper Review of Superannuation recommended a third of the trustees of industry super funds be independent of employers or unions. That's still a long way away.